Can you tell me what you're looking forward to most about these 10th anniversary gigs you're doing?
I'm not looking forward to any of it because it makes me feel very old.
I think the most important thing is to have a good time with the fans and make sure that we play a good show and everyone has a good time.
It's very nice. Nice to be still able to be playing as a band. I'm 10 years. It's 10 years since our first single, so it's like 13, 14 years since we started as a band. So it's nice to be able to still have an audience to play to be honest.
I'm really excited about the actual show itself. To be honest, 10 years, I think it's an achievement because most bands only do one album if they're lucky, you know. I think that's an achievement. I'm not sort of like jumping for joy. I kind of feel, you know, that it's like, you know, I feel quite old, to be honest.
I was shocked that it was 10 years, and to be told that it was makes me feel like I've missed 9.5. So it'll be nice to see the fact that a lot of our fans, I hate the word fans, but I can't think of another one, so a lot of our fans still have the money to get babysitters now.
I mean, how did the band come together initially?
Initially, the band came together out of the demise of an old band that Matt and I were in.
Well, Steve and Matt were in a band together previously, and I knew Matt. I moved down to London, and I met Matt through a mutual friend, and us three started playing together. And I think Steve met Martin in some club in London. I don't know.
I met them at a club actually. I was dressed in leather, and they liked my shoes.
Finally, I met Martin. I think I went and saw a band. I think it was the Milltown Brothers down in Camden. And I saw Martin kind of like walk across the room, and it was kind of like trying to pull a lady actually. I sort of went up to him and said, "Do you want to sing in a band?" And he gave me this card with Soothsayer to the Stars written on it. And 2 weeks later he came down and auditioned for us, and he was it.
Did you ever think when you first started that you'd be so successful and be going for so long? I mean, how's the time flown by for you?
I actually, for a moment, I thought we were going to be Aerosmith. I thought we'd be enormous.
Our concept for starting the band is that we wanted to be royalty from the offset.
It has flown by, yeah. I mean, it's everybody's ambition to be able to just make a record.
I thought we would stay the course, just because of the nature of us, and the fact we're very different characters, you know, and we all write, and there's a lot of variety in there.
We wanted to tour stadiums and play big venues and be rock stars, which we kind of have done for a while.
Yeah, so it's we're lucky to be able to do it. You know, a lot of people don't get the chance to even make one single. So
I think the first 2 or 3 years, the whirlwind of having top 10 records and travelling the world and stuff was a bit of a blur, but I have fond memories, and I'm glad we achieved what we achieved.
Did your early success surprise you at all?
I think by the time it happened, I was just dying for it.
No, not at all.
it was kind of weird because there were situations which is, you know, obviously like the music business, where 3 or 4 months previously, you'd record companies that would come to see you and didn't want to know, and then all of a sudden we had like 50 A&R men at gigs and we were like able to pick and choose. It was just because there was a couple of journalists were taking an interest in us, and it was like they were flocking around.
We knew that we had it. Then we had Haunted, we had Be My Light, Be My Guide, Sleep Well Tonight, Olympian, London Can You Wait.
The moment that this lineup came together, it was just really special from day one. You know? And so when we started signing deals, you know, it was, for me, it was just majorly exciting, having waited or tried to do it for 10 years, really.
But we were good. I think we deserved it. I think we stood out.
Well, you've had 10 top 40 singles and 2 top 10 albums. I mean, that must be a proud achievement. I mean, that must give you some feeling of, you know, the success there, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah, that is quite a lot to be proud of, I suppose. It's, I mean, it's not saving the world.
Of course. I mean, even to this day, you know, people say, you know, people who haven't heard of it say, well, you know, what did you achieve? I said, well, you know, we had 10 top 40s and 2 top 10 albums and number 11, and we toured the world 6 times and we did Top of the Pops and all those things. I think it's a great achievement.
Well, it's, I mean, you know, in then it was like you had to sell more records then than you do now, which, I mean, it's you know, sell 2 records to get a number 1 now, can't you? But so it was then it was even better, you know, the fact that we were able to sell quite a lot of records, and yeah, it was good being on telly and all that, you know, Top of the Pops, fantastic. That's what we wanted, you know. It's what you dream of when you're a kid, you know.
I did want it, and I wanted it quite badly, and to a point, I suppose I got it.
People overlook the economics of selling vast quantities of records rather than just actually being a chart band.
I remember being in a van coming back from, I think it was Marseille we were driving back, and we got our first top 40. It was Sleep Well Tonight, went in at 36, and that was a kind of moment for us. And we were just jumping for joy. I mean, we had this sort of like Baby Bell cheese, you know, the red sort of like wax stuff. And we carved 36, having stuck it on the window, and we were just jumping around. And you know, I think all of them, some of them were supposed to do better, and they didn't, and some did much better than we expected them to do. You know, but I think any record that goes in the top 40, you know, is a good thing. To have 10 of them is, you know, I'm really proud of. You know.
One thing we never did was sell absolutely loads of records, which is one thing that does still annoy me to this day, but that's pretty much in the hands of the gods. But at least we have the ability to make a dent where it mattered.
What's your favourite, out of all the stuff you've done and produced, your favourite single and your favourite album?
I think my favourite single is probably For the Dead.
I think maybe Olympian's my favourite album, because it was just so exciting at the time. And
Favourite album, I think Libertine, just because for once, even though the 4 of us write together, for once we homogenised the record so it just sounded like a band that was truly focused. Also, it's very soulful and has the dexterity and the eloquence, as well as the lyrical content, which for me constitutes a good record.
Favourite album is probably the last one, Libertine.
My favourite album is perhaps Revelations, or I think Revelations and Libertine.
I think as a single, I think the best single that we've done, just for pure charm and the indication that we were good songwriters, has got to be For the Dead.
I won't pick a single, but favourite song. Actually, I will pick a single. I mean, when For the Dead came out, the first single, I remember I was still living with my mum in Watford, and it came on the radio, and I knew it was coming on, and we had one of those tiny little sort of transistor radios in the kitchen, and we danced around the kitchen together.
I think Libertine's a brilliant studio record, and I'm really proud of it. We worked on it for a long time, and we perfected it. I'm really happy with the result.
My favourite song is probably a song called Somewhere in the World, which is the only one I can imagine Elvis singing.
What do you enjoy most about touring and playing live?
I actually enjoy it all, you know. I think you find Martin can't stand being in bands and stuff.
Oh, I despise touring. I really do. I can't bear it.
Tough one. I think I actually prefer recording than touring.
You know, but I just like the camaraderie and the taking the mickey, and I like being at airports and being on planes to America and getting drunk. No, and just I find, you know, it's quite childish, I suppose. But I enjoy the whole thing about touring.
I always find I get very nervous before and after playing, because some of the things we do are quite fiddly.
I love the shows, and I love being on stage, and I like the physicality of singing, and I like the fact that 2 minutes before I walk on stage, my head gets so large it has moons of its own.
I enjoy just playing live. Touring, a lot of it is hanging around, and to be fair, you know, hotel rooms, and there are times when you get a day off in, you know, Rome or something, or New York, where that's nice, but a lot of the time you arrive, you do the gig and you move on, sometimes even that night, so you don't get to see a lot of the town. So it's just, you know, it's better than working for a living, but it's, you know, it's not quite as glamorous as it sounds, but so you just sort of live for the show that night, and that's where you get your kind of like your buzz from. But the downsides to it, you know, being away from your family and stuff.
A lot of roadies get addicted to touring, you know, and I just can't get. I prefer it to being in the studio, really.
I think what I really like is what I've mentioned before, when you play a song and it's effortless and there's a real cohesion with the band.
But the rest of it, frankly, I hate with a great passion. I don't like the fact that I can't have a bath when I want to have a bath.
You know, with regards to your music writing, what's the music influences you? Is there anything particular at all, or?
I think that initially it started with the likes of the Who and the Stones a lot, and then the Faces, massive. I know we always get the Smiths comparisons, but I never really looked to the Smiths really for inspiration. I came more from the Stones sort of end of it. Plus the White Album is a great sort of treasure trove for all sort of would-be songwriters.
Personally, I'm coming from the sort of school of punk rock. That's what I grew up on. You know, when I was at school, The Clash, my favourite band, The Stranglers as well. That's sort of, I was quite a musical snob until I came to London at sort of 18.
Yeah, I think, you know, I sort of grew up sort of when I was at school, the kind of like the punk movement. I was very into kind of like The Clash and the Jam were my sort of. But I was also into sort of the Beatles. My mum and dad were like into the Beatles, so I liked a lot of '60s music. I liked the Small Faces and the Who, and also growing up in Cleethorpes, there was a big Northern Soul kind of area. So a lot of my mates were into Northern Soul, so I sort of got into that as well. So a strange mixture. But I was like, you know, teenage mod with a scooter and all that, kind of following the Jam and Northern Soul gigs and all that stuff.
I suppose I have brought a sort of, some of the songs that I've written for Gene have had a sort of rougher, sort of punkier feel. You can probably still see that in my drumming, even though the music's quite anthemic at times. It's quite aggressive sort of drumming, I think, at points anyway.
Hymns, and I say that without the slightest inflection of humour. As a kid, I was dragged. Well, no, I wasn't dragged. I quite enjoyed it actually, till I was about 8, to Methodist Chapel every Sunday. And there's something when people say the devil has the best music, they're entirely wrong. Because some of the tunes like Jerusalem are just so phenomenally stirring, and I always love that sense of grandeur and pomp, and not pomposity, but just pure pomp and weight that those melodies had.
I think soul to me is the most important. I've never really invested my time in the Stevie Vais of this world or the Van Halens of this world. For me, it's not enough.
And also just, I think key to songwriting is frankly not what you say, it's how it's said. And I have a reasonable grasp of analogy and simile.
I think The Clash are my favourite live band of all time. I was lucky enough to see them. And just the way they used to run on stage and just belt it out and just go for it. Being a kid, excited in the crowd, just watching that and just watching the whole place go off when they used to come on. That really sort of changed my life, I think, seeing that.
I mean, going back over the last 10 years, anything that springs to mind, any kind of defining moments or funny moments that you can think of off the top of your head?
We're not really a funny type of band, let's face it.
Funny moments. There was one moment actually in Japan.
I don't know, defining moments. It was nice. It was nice getting a first top 40 single. I remember we were on our way back from France. We'd been doing some shows. There was Oasis and Elastica doing some shows around France, and we found out on the way back that we'd had our first top 40. So that was quite nice.
I think the thing that really stood out for us is when we did the Albert Hall, and we had an orchestra and everything in. And I was sitting down, just hearing all the orchestrations of like two of our albums, because it was after Drawn to the Deep End. And I found that quite an emotive experience, being in this great sort of hallowed hall, and just having all of the orchestrations go through and just bounce around and echo around the Albert Hall was a defining moment for me. I loved that.
We're not like, we get on fantastically in Gede, we always have, and But we've been together a long time. And Steve and I, we played one show in Japan. It was a sellout show, and it was the hottest show we've ever done. And the temperature was just, it was really humid outside, and the aircon wasn't working in the venue. And in Japan, in that sort of climate, it was so hot that we kind of like started to lose, and we started to sort of drift off after a while. And I got quite angry with the others. I thought they were giving up.
Playing the Albert Hall, that was nice, selling that out. Nice because it was great to do it, and it was also, we had all our family there, we all had a box each, and my sort of first child was 6 weeks old, and I can still see him up, my wife like bouncing him up and down in the sort of box in the distance, which was quite weird.
Sadly, we had a bit of a problem when we went on 3 songs in. The PA went down, and we all had our relatives and all of our family and friends. So we had to leave the stage, and I don't think the 4 of us have ever experienced an emotional low together like that, because obviously we had to go back out there and fight against the PA. So I think that was quite a defining moment.
And I started shouting at them. We came off, as like everyone's baying for an encore. I started shouting at the others, and like Steve just snapped, and we started just rowing basically, and we ended up fighting in the dressing room, and just kind of like on the floor. The promoter like comes in, and there's a crowd baying for an encore. Me and Steve are rolling around fighting on the floor.
Milan in 1995 was very humbling. We played a venue that was tiny, actually. It probably was only designed to hold 6 or 7 small marsupials, and there were 700 people in there singing the songs back in, obviously, in an Italian accent.
All the buttons off our shirts, like looking like Robinson Crusoe sort of thing. And eventually we sort of stopped, and the promoter said, "Oh, they're going to do an encore." Okay, we do an encore. So Steve and I walked on with like ripped shirts and stuff. I thought that was just, and we played a brilliant encore, and it was forgotten about. But I think I find that sort of humorous now.
Supporting Paul Weller, that was a personal highlight. Having him sort of stood here while I was playing and hanging out with him was a sort of personal hero of mine from when I was a kid, following the jam around, I suppose. So that was quite nice.
You've sat in your bedroom and you've written these songs on a scrap of paper that you've ripped out of the phone book, and then suddenly they mean something to people whose lives you have absolutely no concept of, and that's in the canon of human experience quite a rare one for most people, and highly enjoyable, actually.
I think it's kind of a bit cheesy, but when we went on at the Albert Hall, just I mean, my mum kind of she knew what I was doing, but she sort of like didn't quite know. She'd never been to a gig before, and she didn't really know what we were about. She'd certainly never been to a rock gig. She was an opera singer, so she's aware of audiences and stuff. But I remember just coming out of the Albert Hall, and I knew where my mum was. She was in a box. We put her in a box with some drinks and stuff. I remember seeing her face kind of like peering over, and I think that was my proudest moment, actually. It's just that her face was just so enthralled by it, and she'd never seen anything like it. And just to see the crowd just going nuts when we first walked on stage, and just sort of like, I didn't wave or anything, but I just kind of like sort of tugged a heartstring, I suppose.
There's just loads of things, doing Top of the Pops and V97, kind of like Reading, Japan the first time we went, being like the Beatles, getting like cars zooming after us down the road and hanging out the car while like, guys, it was a bit surreal. Loads of great moments.
Now, you do seem very relaxed on stage, so this obviously is the case that you don't get like stage fright at all.
I did last night.
No, I don't get frightened at all.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think myself and Steve get quite nervous. Steve gets very nervous, but you get a bit of the old dicky stomach before you go on them. But a couple of vodkas usually livens you up.
When we start smiling at each other on stage, when we look at the DVD, there'll be a point where we achieve that sort of nirvana, whatever you want to call it, and we start smirking at each other, and it kind of the atmosphere on stage relaxes, and then it just propels back to the crowd, you know. And by the encores, we're very relaxed, I suppose.
So, but now I don't get nervous at all. I don't even think about it, to be honest.
Could you briefly explain to us how the band write music collectively? How do you kind of come up with your ideas?
Normally, Gene have always been a cooperative. It's 4 of us. We always write together. So what tends to happen is one of us will come in with either a completed idea or just a riff or a set of chords, and we'll sit down in a studio and we'll all face each other. So normally drums, Martin, Kevin and myself, and we'll just go through the ideas, and if they're strong then we'll propagate them. And normally it just goes through a lot of edits, so we just keep editing and editing and editing until we find the right groove and we find the right arrangement. And then once the music's done, then Martin will go away and figure out a melody and the lyrics, then come back and just drape it over what we've done.
It's different every song. I think that's why we've split the publishing between the 4 of us for every song, because certain songs could be one person mainly or 2 people.
Well, I'm actually, of course, the genius of the band, and I'm also a philanthropist and let them have some of the money.
I think we all live in different places, and we're all at home, you know, just kind of getting tracks together. You know, I at the moment have about 30 songs, which are just pieces of music which I write on my home studio, and it's like it'll have guitar, bass, and drums on it, and then I'll just bring it and we won't have lyrics or occasional idea for melody, but really that's Martin's department. Well, I'll just sort of bring that into a rehearsal studio and play it to the others, and someone will pick up on one of the ideas, and then it will go to our little forum sort of thing, and then it gets changed. And
on a whole, one person tends to bring in an idea, you know, either a riff or a chord progression or a rhythm track or just a concept for a song. You know, I'd like to do a song like this off What's Going On by Marvin Gaye or something, you know.
Oh, it's a remarkably organic process that's changed over the years.
But yeah, so basically we've always split things 4 ways. It's always been Gene records. I think that's why some of the Gene records have got more variety than something like Libertine, which we very much focused on trying to narrow the parameters of what we do.
Early on we used to just demo, and then Martin would write his lyrics and his melody line over the top, but as the years have gone on he's got more involved, so we've actually all sat around and we've worked the song out together, and then he'll do his like sort of lyrics over the top. So
sometimes one or 2 people are responsible for nearly the whole song. Sometimes it's all 4 of us, you know. But I quite like the interaction, and it's important not to be too precious about your own idea, because I know that I can do some things well and better than the others, and I know that they can sort of just do loads better than I can. It just works like that.
Music gets written by all 4 of us, and it can come from a seed or a fairly sort of a juvenile shrub, and I take it and trim it. I suppose it's rather like some bonsai, our songwriting.
it's a slow process, but it's quite good because I think you get good results out of it in the end, rather than just one person saying, "Look, here's the new album," and blah blah blah. Yeah.
To move on to your fans, you've got a very loyal fan base who's stuck with you for many years. What do you attribute this to in particular?
I think it was exciting when we started. We sort of started like any band, sort of coming up through the NME sort of press route, and then getting on Radio 1, and it was an exciting time for them. But when they came along, they really took it down quite deep, I think, and it meant a lot to them. And I think that's the key to survival, really.
I mean, obviously, if your fans desert you, it's like an admiral with a deserting army. You can't fight, can you? And I think having a loyal fan base allows you to keep going and doing what you're doing, which is making songs and performing.
Yeah, it's because we're good. I think that's obvious. I think they've stuck with us, but yes, because they there's very little of any quality, and I'm not trying to claim that somehow collectively we're Mozart, but yeah, we're good. I think we're good. I'm quite happy to sit back and say I think we're a good band, and we touch people?
I don't know. I just think we're a good live band. We make good records, and I think we've always tried to be approachable.
When you're given those opportunities and people start spending money on you, you have to make it matter to them. And some of these people have spent 10 years, but some people have just come into it a few years ago. But whenever they do, they know that we're bang up for it and we mean it. And it's sort of it's got beyond the sort of doing it for success. It's just like doing it for an element of quality, I suppose.
I think they're loyal to us because the sentiment of what we do is soulful and full of heart. And I don't think we're a gimmick band at all. I think we're basically a very sensitive bunch and we write sensitive songs. I think they affect people in a positive way, and I think that's why people enjoy coming to see us.
I think it's because we're good, and I think people like the songs, and I think they've meant something to people. Like many songs have meant things to me over the years. I mean, in essence, I think that's our greatest success.
But I just think, it's sort of, we're that sort of type of band that people stick with, sort of, which is great. I think that's what I always wanted for our band, really, rather than, you want it to sort of touch them, don't you, mean something to them, so.
I think they've stuck with us because we've just put some damn good music out, really, and our live shows have always been top. We got to a stage in the first year. I think we toured Olympian for 8 months, and during that I was away from home for 8 months. Did 72 flights or something, and in that period we just became a really good live band, and it never left us, thankfully.
Finally, last question. Is there anything you'd like to say to your fans watching this DVD?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks very much for turning up, and being part of it. And it's obviously meant a lot to us.
Oh, get out more. Don't expect nothing more of me, come on, be honest.
I think it's very difficult to sort of thank someone or thank a group of people without sounding insincere, but obviously without people investing in what we do, then we wouldn't be who we are.
Obviously we're grateful for their investing in the band over the years.
Yeah, thank you for sticking with us for all these years, and we've all had a good time, and I hope you have too.
And obviously, if we didn't want to make records and have a fan base, then we would have never have signed a record deal. So I think the whole point of signing a record deal was to get a fan base and was to have love and affection when we go and play live, which is thankfully what you guys do for us. So thanks.
All I can say is that we've had an absolute ball doing it for 10 years. Cheers.
Have more sex.